The warmest of greetings to you, and welcome to Happily Ever Teaching. This is the podcast to help you enthrall your learners in every subject under the sun using the best teaching method known to science, storytelling. To do this, we feature special guest educators who are passionately keen for your children to become amazing and successful human beings. I am storyteller Chip Cahoon, and with me today is...
Hi, I'm Rob. I teach a Key Stage 2 class just outside Milton Keynes, and I've worked throughout all the Key Stages.
Hi, I'm Helen. I also teach just outside Milton Keynes, and I'm currently teaching reception in Year 1.
And today we are exploring what science we can teach, with a witty folktale found all around the world, adapted by us to be set in medieval England. You can listen to the story by downloading our sister podcast, Fables and Fairy Tales, or search our website, epictales.co.uk, for The Dragon's Heart. There you'll find a video of me telling the story that you can share with your children. And if you sign up as an Epic Educator, you'll also get a copy as an ebook or paperback illustrated by the magnificent Maria Coelho, as well as the full audiobook for you to download at any time. There are even some tips for telling the story yourself, and a whole heap of resources to go with the lesson ideas we're about to discuss, including any extra lesson ideas that we don't have time to fit into this podcast. Right now, though, let's continue our discussion with Helen, Rob, Fullardred, and the U-Dragon, and we're going to be getting sciencey today. So, who would like to kick us off here?
I can do.
Go for it, for ages 4 to 7.
I'm going to start us with a tree, with a dragon in a tree. I really like this image of a little green dragon, you know, living in a nut tree. I thought it would be a really great way to start discussing the idea of habitats with children. So start from there, you know, this dragon's habitat is a nut tree, and look at why he might like living in a nut tree, what that habitat provides for him, and also then look at an actual tree. That may not have dragons living it, but look at the tree as a habitat. We have a lovely oak tree in our school grounds that I often use for this activity, to start the children off just by looking at the tree and what would make it a good habitat for creatures and what creatures can we see, and then do some further learning using images from the internet or a PowerPoint or something about the tree as a habitat. What kind of creatures live in a tree, what the tree provides for them, and then also how those creatures are well adapted to living in that habitat. So there's a bit around habitats, but also about animal adaptation. Again, I thought we'd start with the little dragon. How is the little dragon suited to living in his habitat? Well, unlike us, he has wings, so he can fly up into the tree. He probably has claws to grip onto the branches. And then again, look at some actual creatures that live in trees. I always like using squirrels for this activity because they've got so many adaptations to be able to live and play in a tree. And hopefully where we are in the countryside in England, you can actually help the children to spot some squirrels.
And especially if you throw the flying squirrel, erroneously named flying squirrel, because it's more like a gliding squirrel, isn't it? But it's still a wonderful adaptation for nipping between trees. Yes,
so I thought do a lot of work around the tree as a habitat, and using actual trees, and then also doing I always like doing artwork with younger children. I can bring it into anything. So draw a beautiful tree with all the creatures in, and labelling the creatures that are in there and their adaptations, and then going sort of into the end of Key Stage 1, this sort of Year 2 age, you know, doing some report writing about the tree as a habitat, and the animals' adaptations. One other kind of related activity, learning objective, is to do with nut trees specifically. I realised when I was reading this story that I don't really often think about nut trees and where nuts come from. And we also have sort of nut type. They're seeds, aren't they? Some of the ones that we think of as nuts. I think Rob will be able to help me with this. Conkers and things are more seeds than nuts. Is that right?
I think so.
I thought all nuts were seeds.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think they all were. Well, there you go. I've learnt something.
I think the confusion comes because some of the foods that we think of as nuts are actually legumes, and they're more like a fruit than something dangling from a tree.
Oh,
I think that's the main difference, isn't it? Because a peanut doesn't come from a tree.
No. So there you go. I'm learning a lot this morning. Anyway, I thought we could just one of the Key Stage 1 learning objectives is to learn about different trees and different plants and where food comes from. So I thought that would be an opportunity to look at these different trees and decide maybe which one the dragon lives in and why, to make that link with the story again. Or maybe he could move across different nut trees. I don't know.
Last time you were recording with us, Helen, I think we had Toria talking about disciplinary literacy as well.
Yes.
And this would be a great way, that the whole nut conversation is a great way, probably more with your end of the school, Rob, the 7 to 11s, to talk about where literacy and disciplinary literacy really diverge, because, we've been calling peanuts, what are they, walnuts and hazelnuts. We've been calling all of these things nuts for a long time, and then a scientist comes along and says, no, they can't be a nut. There's a fantastic program on Radio 4 here in the UK called The Unbelievable Truth, which is hosted by a comedian called David Mitchell. And I don't know how you can find it, but you should definitely search online for David Mitchell's rant on nuts, because he really perfectly sums this up. People call them nuts. Scientists should learn to get with the people and not go and mess everything up.
Cause all the confusion.
Exactly. What else could you get your 7 to 11-year-olds doing though, Rob?
I would also like to do some science with the tree and the dragon, but also with Sir Philodred as well.
Oh.
And part of the upper Key Stage 2 science curriculum is looking at life cycles. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to look at the life cycle of a plant, of a reptile, and of a mammal as well.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Compare the different stages.
Are you going to get some dragon eggs to hatch in your class, Rob?
I hope so. I'm on the look. I'm on the hunt.
So make sure you're finding you dragon eggs and not Demogorgon dragon eggs. It could be quite disastrous.
Yeah, so just to look at the different stages, are there some that are similar throughout? Are there ones which are completely different? I'm imagining and hoping that your children will find that the life cycle of a plant is quite different to the life cycle of a mammal. But hey, you never know. They may look outside the box and find links that you didn't think were there to start off with. Yeah, and it's just a good way to engage the children in that topic and give it a bit of, rather than just, we're going to learn about the life cycle of a reptile, which can be a bit abstract. You haven't got an actual, well, if you do have reptiles as pets or in your school community, you could bring them in and have a look and see what they do differently to plants and mammals.
That's all we have time for in this episode, folks, and indeed this week. If you'd like to talk to us about anything you've heard in this podcast, or if there's a subject you are soon to teach that you'd like us to cover, you can find us on social media using @TeachHappily, or leave us a review using your favourite podcast app. Please also share this podcast with your colleagues and help us start a story-led revolution in classrooms around the world, so children everywhere can learn in a way that's effective, memorable, and enjoyable all at the same time. We'll be back next week so Sir Philodred and the U-Dragon can help us plan lessons in design and technology, music, history, geography, physical education, computing, and art. Gosh, that's a lot, isn't it? Right now, though, it only remains for us to say cheerio, and we hope to hear your story soon. So, cheerio! And we hope to hear your story soon.